And we're back for another week of Breaking Down Security. This is Brian Brake, of course. And as always, joining me is Miss Berlin and Mr. Boettcher.
Hello.
Yes. So, very interesting week of things. My cat is outside my door wanting to be let in.
I can hear.
You can fill out your bingo cards. Apparently, we have a bingo card now that people are doing.
What?
Yeah,
What?
so when they hear like the trains on your audio,
Yeah.
or
my
lawnmowers, yeah. So cats are mine. So bingo.
Oh man, I want to know what else is on the bingo sheet.
You'll have to ask Scott, our moderator.
Like anytime I drop the F-bomb.
That's probably one too. Yes,
That's like the center one.
Yeah, that's the free space. Yeah. Another space is when Mr. Boettcher is silent.
Oh,
fill that one in. All right. Yeah, you're there, Mr. Boettcher, right?
Of course.
Okay, I was just checking because I can't see you on the
strong
camera.
silent type.
That's right, strong silent type.
Well, see, my fiber connection is probably severed.
Have you gotten your better internet finally?
No. He's using his MiFi.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. Well, so I guess I should announce it since.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, don't you have something to should I do a drum roll or?
Yeah. So I've taken a new job. I gave my notice last week at my current company, and they're sorry to see me go. I think. I hope so.
Where did
they
you
are.
work?
I can't tell you that.
Secret.
Yeah, well, it's probably the most poorly kept secret because I've pretty much, I think, told everybody. But
I always forget if that helps any.
Well, that's good. That's always helpful. Yeah. No, so I've taken a job as a managing consultant at a company here in the Seattle area. So I go from working from home almost 100% of the time to not working from home and having a commute. So that's going to be an interesting thing. So maybe
more podcasts to listen to.
You know what? I kind of have missed doing the whole listen to the podcast thing while I was commuting. So I definitely will be able to catch up with some of the ones that have started. There's definitely a lot more from when I last commuted in 2014. So yeah. So. And as if that wasn't enough good news, I found out today I'm going to be kind of doing the first talk / keynote at Bsides, Springfield, Missouri in July.
Yes.
So it's going to be about...
So we got our keynotes. Now it's Boettcher's turn.
That's right. Yeah, I actually submitted and I was like, well, if I get accepted, then that's cool. But if not, that's still cool too. So, but yeah, it's about building community, which, going to talk a little bit about what I know, which is what everybody says you should do. Just talk about what you know. So,
yep.
We're going to talk a little bit about how I got the podcast started with Mr. Boettcher's help and what we did with that and CSEC East and our Slack community. I'm going to talk about what worked and what didn't work and, a couple of other things. So I have to now, in addition to doing a new job, I have to write a 45-minute to an hour talk. So sweet.
Yes.
I guess. Yeah.
I still have talks to write. Don't remind me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Speaking of which, you just came back from Bsides Nashville, right?
I did.
What was that? How was that?
It was very good. I always really, really enjoy Bsides Nashville.
Yeah?
So. I didn't really get to watch. There was a couple talks that I wanted to watch, but I did take all 3 children. So we spent a lot of time doing Minecraft, and we get these little kits shipped to our house monthly called Kiwi Crates.
All
so
right.
we put together some of those. They're like little maker boxes that the kids get.
So it was like a take your son to work kind of thing?
Kind of, yeah. My oldest just played games on his phone the whole time. And
oh, well.
Then the other 2 kind of had some interest in things.
That's cool.
They all really enjoyed the keynote. We sat in and watched the keynote.
Cool. Excellent.
So yeah, it was a good time.
Nice. All right. So, Mr. Boettcher, let's do our weekly, malware report. What have any new malwares for you? Because it kind of segues into our topic for the week.
So interesting that, we hadn't had ransomware in quite some time.
Oh, yeah?
And we finally got one today.
Sweet.
And it
actually
hit? Email address. It was an email address. Well, attempts. We haven't got any attempts in well over a year.
Mm-hmm.
And so this one came in, and it was a new type of email that we'd never seen before. And we're like, wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And so the problem is the email address didn't exist, but at least they tried, right? And the thing was that there was an image that had the password in it, right? So that can't be caught by, first of all, There's a Office document attached, which has the infector script embedded in it.
Mm-hmm.
And typically these sandboxes will read the email body and say, okay, is this the password? Is this the password? Is this, and they'll just try.
Right.
Right. So once they decrypt the attachment, they'll execute whatever's in there and see if it's malware, whether it's JavaScript or whatnot. This one had an image with the password in it and a bunch of text. So I thought that was pretty clever.
Okay.
So now the sandbox people will have to adjust.
Right.
And probably try to read, image to text or something. I'm not sure.
Well, that's what I was when you were describing it. The only thing I could think of was that something in the body was doing some kind of OCR on the image, and then it would read that and execute it. But I guess that's not the case.
No, this was HTML. So the image with the text in it was in, the HTML of the body of the message.
Right.
Right. And then the attachment was just a zipped, or not zipped, but encrypted, right, attachment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's another evasion technique. They know that we haven't fallen for any of their stuff in quite some time, so they don't even try.
Yeah.
And that way, when they do try, we capture their new stuff, right?
Yep.
So now they tried one email just to see, and it didn't work. But hey, now I'm telling you can think of how you can defend it. Yeah, we may talk about it there as well.
Cool.
So that's the latest malware report.
Very nice. Very nice.
It was ransomware that used a SQLite database for some reason.
Okay.
Not sure. We didn't really get into, what are they storing in the database? So is it encryption keys for each file? I'm not sure.
Right. Yeah, that's...
Leave it to the reversers like Tyler to figure that out.
Exactly. Wait a minute. Ms. Berlin said she just watched a video with him. What was that on?
No, I wasn't a video. I was sitting front row.
Oh, he was at Bsides Nashville. No,
he was at NeoISF.
Oh, that was a different thing.
Yeah, Northeastern Ohio Information Security Forum. It's like a little bit south of Cleveland.
Okay.
And he was there presenting. He did a little lightning talk about reversing some malware.
That's some smart dude right there. I'll tell you what.
It was extremely interesting.
Yeah, he did a debugging and analysis class for us a couple months ago. It was really well received and really really great stuff. So yeah, if you ever get
he basically just showed like I assume this doesn't work for everything, but it was like what you can do in 10 minutes to reverse malware to try and figure out at least the beginning of what it's doing.
Very nice. Okay. And he went through like a quick and dirty analysis kind of thing?
Mm-hmm.
Like dropped it in a sandbox or something, I would imagine?
He ran file against it to see what kind of file type it was. He ran strings against it to see what it contained, and ran some other stuff just to see what was inside. They were both flash files.
Oh, okay.
And trying to see what malware was, like where it was downloading from and what it was trying to do. In this case, it was a crypto coin miner.
Okay. All right. Well, another excellent segue. So let's go ahead and segue into that. So Mr. Boettcher was talking about malware. You were talking about crypto coin miners and such. The Verizon database data breach incident report came out. Did I just butcher that?
No, it's not. It's not database.
Data breach investigation report. Ugh.
Yeah, I kind of get confused between the DBIR and the BDIR, right? So BDIR is a breaking down incident response podcast, which everybody should be listening to, right?
Exactly,
so that's once a month. So it's not gonna break your listening queue,
pun intended,
and all that. But the DBIR stands for DBIR, Data Breach Investigation Report.
And then there's DFIR.
Oh my God. Oh, just dying here with the acronyms, people. Oh, wow.
There's DIOR, which I think is a fashion thing.
Dior, yeah. Dior. Oh, wait. I don't know anything about that. Anyway, we're digressing. So that comes out every year.
I see those stilettos in the background break. You ain't hiding nothing.
That's true.
I was gonna say, you sure as hell don't see them here.
They make my butt look fantastic. That's all I can say.
My legs look great.
Exactly. Them calves, So anyway, let's get back on task here. So it's what, 11 years of doing the data breach investigation report. Every year they, add some jokes and stuff. So we talked about this a little bit before the show, but like who benefits from reading this? Because it seems like all the podcasters, and of course, our friends over Defensive Sec talked about this a little bit, but we always talk about it, but I never actually see anybody doing anything with it. What's the benefit from having this report?
Ever since I've known it has been a thing, it's just been it's out, let's go read it.
Yeah.
It's not. It's never anything new.
What kind of insights are we supposed to gain from this?
I mean, they are new insights, but all of the underlying problems that the insights are like layered on top of are all the same problems.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, phishing's still a large problem? Oh, okay,
weird.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, it trends last year. And we kind of being in the industry and being in the front lines of all this kind of knew that.
Right.
So we recognize the trends because we see them as they happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think this is a review, like a year in review of, hey, here's all the data that we gathered in our VERIS framework.
It's great to point to stuff in presentations, and when you're like, maybe if you're trying to get capital money to buy things, right? You're like, oh, look at this. Like we could stop all of this coin mining by making these configuration changes or buying this thing.
Mm-hmm.
I got a few things out of it, so we can go over those. I kind of don't like the snarky comments throughout the paper.
Yeah, that got old quick.
I think the people who read it, like you and I, are getting something out of it because we pretty much understand it. And maybe they got complaints and say, man, I can't read this. It's, I read a paragraph and I fall asleep. It's just so boring. And so maybe they tried to, I'll give you an example. It says malware. It won't always look the same like your brother when he uses the comb over. Okay. That has nothing. Like I read a whole paragraph and it had nothing to do with security. It was just like trying to be funny.
Right.
They need somebody. They need somebody to help with their material.
Yeah, and there was a section. Some of the the quips and everything only made sense if you actually Googled them. Like I don't know where Bell's Beach is, but they made a comment about, every day you're dealing with. Some companies are dealing with malware like the beaches or like Bell Beach or something, the weather on Bell Beach, it's always bad or something. And I'm like, I don't know what the context is there, so contextual, quips like that kind of went over my head. I apologize for that, but,
Some people will click an attachment faster than Harry Turner. Harry Turner.
I had to look that one up too. He's
has
like
a lot of that.
He's in the Guinness World Records for the fastest Morse code typer or something at 135 words per minute or something. And
I feel like they had to look that up.
I bet they did. Or somebody who's just really good at Jeopardy would have, wrote the report.
And maybe that's why they put it in there. They wanted to teach you something else.
Oh no, I definitely learned something because I read about this guy's whole life. And
so what did you learn from the VERIS and DBI? Well, funny thing.
I learned about the weather on Bell's Beach and the fastest Morse code typer. So
if you make it on Jeopardy and that wins, you have Verizon to thank.
Exactly.
Or whoever works there that wrote it.
Exactly. So we downloaded the full report, which is 68 pages, and they require you to register, which you can get it by just putting crap in the registration field. So don't feel like you need to actually put in real information if you want to actually look at the whole report, or you can do like what most people probably did and look at the executive summary, which is only 8 pages. Something I found interesting was they said 78% of people don't click on a single phishing campaign all year. Now, I don't know how many people that is 78%, but that's still fairly good. The problem is 4% of the targets in any given phishing campaign will still click on it. So phishing is still a very viable option for bad guys to do things.
I had another thought about their quips and everything.
Okay.
You asked like, who is this for?
Right.
And who does it benefit and what do we get out of it?
Right.
Maybe they know their audience better. It's just for all of us. So might as well write it for, something that they would want to read.
Right. Right.
And not just the stuff that they always have to crank out to the customer.
Well, I will tell you, I didn't fall asleep reading it. So,
the Verizon people that wrote it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did read a funny footnote. Says, we didn't normalize this by population. We're trying to impress the global nature of the victims, not pit countries against each other.
No, that's good. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
cool.
I could have done without it, but that's just me. I think it's kind of shallow. But hey, maybe it does benefit to their target audience, which may be
something different,
right?
Yeah.
I know we're not going to go over this one also today, but there's the Symantec one that we're starting to look over, and that doesn't really seem to have any of that.
Right.
And it's just as beneficial.
Okay. Well, we can always check that one out.
Back to the phishing.
Yeah.
You said 4% will fall for it.
We'll click on any given phishing campaign. So apparently, of all the data they had, 4% of people will click on anything.
Will click on it and become potentially compromised, right?
Potentially, yes.
So that just says, hey, if you want somebody to click on this, send 25 phishing emails and one person will click.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right. And one person will become compromised. Now, I thought it was interesting that they said only 17% of the campaigns were reported. I don't know what the size of the campaign was. I'm assuming that a campaign could be 5 emails or 1,000 emails. Certainly the larger ones will get reported. But even if they do get reported, there's a lot there. Like, how fast do you respond to that report? If it takes you a day to respond, to gather all your data, to find out who got the email, what it was about, what it did, maybe reverse any malware that may have come from it, it's way too late. They've compromised 4% of those systems, and they're already on their second, third, fourth layer of compromises, right? They've gone beyond the patient zero, and they've already infiltrated other things. So even if you find everyone and clean them up, they're already in at that point.
Yep.
So I think it's real important that phishing be addressed, because it is probably, and I don't have the right data in front of me on this phishing, but it's there is a social engineering component to the vast majority of these breaches.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so one of the other facts that they came away from this was that they say that you have 16 minutes until the first click on a phishing campaign. So somebody sends a phish, you've got 16 minutes to detect it, or 16 minutes until, some guy from marketing or sales or your engineering folks click on the link. But it will be 28 minutes until your first savvy email user reports it, which means there's about 8 minutes of additional time before somebody actually goes, hey, this is probably not a good thing. We should probably report it to security. Which that's not good. And I've actually seen phishing campaigns that it didn't take 16 minutes to get infected. Depending on the organization, it would take a few minutes, and you get very little time to do that. And that's
it
just
depends on what
go ahead.
What was contained in the email. Was it malware, or was it like a cred stealer? Because cred stealers involve more hands-on for the attackers, so it typically takes longer.
Mm-hmm.
But malware is, as soon as they click on it, they're infected, and they may not even realize it because they're pretty under the radar.
Right.
And then you have to have other controls to try and detect that. Because I've seen people, I looked at the attachment, I clicked on macros, or I double clicked whatever, and nothing happened. So I just deleted it and moved on. Yeah. Something happened, right?
Yep.
Something bad happened. And it says over 92% of malware came initially via email. So that's the number one vector for malware is email. 92%, that's quite a bit.
Yep. So here, my question is, if the endpoint security companies are, out there and they're on your systems, we were talking about this in Slack, and one of our users, she goes by the name of Director of Infosec, very apropos because that's her title at work. She said that she has a system, and she says it's a bit hinky, but it sounds like it's fairly sophisticated and pretty awesome, so that any kind of alert that goes off on a user system about being malware or email infection or whatever, her IPS and her systems will automatically put that box in an isolated VLAN to keep it from laterally moving to other systems on the network. And I was like, that's genius, because I don't know of any other organization that has anything like that, where they're isolating based on bad behavior on the system or something that's out of the ordinary, which I found quite interesting, and I have thought about suggesting it to my own company. Thoughts, suggestions, anything?
I knew that was coming.
Sorry, I'm trying not to die from coughing.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, that's great. She mentioned that it's not a giant organization, and it's probably, she doesn't know what the big companies do, but yeah, that's really good, and very I guess admirable that you could set up a system like that, right, and not have to spend a fortune on these next gen endpoint tools where you can click a button and isolate a specific host. I mean, they do have those features, some of them.
Couldn't you have some kind of IDS rule where it's like, if I see this kind of if I see somebody trying to make a connection out to something, isolate that system on the network, or if I see you've got your Windows logging stuff, the LogMD stuff. If you've got something that lights off according to, known bad behavior, isolate that system immediately on the network. That way, the initial vector is going to be somebody clicking on something. Oh no, I clicked on it. That's okay. We've got you isolated. You're in your own little VLAN, your own little, isolated box where, you're still got internet access because we want to analyze the malware later on, but you won't be able to do anything inside the network until we pull you out of that VLAN.
Yep.
I don't know if it's an IDS thing that does it, but yeah, certainly a lot of endpoint tools do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Mr. Boettcher, you said you had some other insights to the report?
Yeah. I think that, let's see, talking about, well, they talked about pretexting was used in less than, let's see, pretexting, where pretexting was used, less than 10% had malware. Oh. And pretexting is where the attacker sort of handcrafts maybe a conversation, an email conversation with someone. For example, they're trying to get someone in finance. They're pretending to be the CEO to send them some money, to wire them some money, things like that. That kind of pretexting.
Oh, you mean they'll do a little back and forth to kind of build rapport?
Yeah.
Okay.
Build a little rapport there with the victim.
Right.
And then where no pretexting was used, greater than 66% used malware.
Right.
Okay. So if there's back and forth there, then they have some other means, like they're trying to gain credentials or just take money, right? Get them to give them some more access or steal something from them directly. And it was used, pretexting was used most often in HR and finance, right, which makes sense.
Sure. Would that be a...
And then I would strongly suggest that you tell your people in HR and finance and everyone in your company, don't put your current company on LinkedIn, because those emails are harvested. And then we see people who put their information on LinkedIn, they're the ones that get the most phishing emails and things. I don't put my current company on LinkedIn. I don't even think I've had a single phishing email in 2 years at work. So,
I mean, unless you want to use it as a honeypot.
Oh, could do that. Yeah. I could definitely see that as being like an email harvester or something.
Yep.
Yeah. So
we get emails from our finance people, and it's CEO_email at Comcast, right? And they spoof it as our CEO.
What's the after action look like on that? Do you ever ask them, did you even bother looking at the user, the email address or anything? Or, I mean, because something in the report, they mentioned that, with phishing or with malware, you often have to click on a link, and you have to, it's not like don't click on the link. It's just you have to wean them off the curiosity to want to click the link. So I have no interest in clicking that link, or training them to, ignore links in emails altogether. Is that the way that, I mean, it would be hard to train for something like that, wouldn't it?
That leads me to my next point that they bring out in the phishing is that phishing training really doesn't work from their perspective, because in their study of nearly 3 million phishing emails, the more phishing emails someone has clicked in the past, the more likely they are to click them in the future. So, I mean, really, the training doesn't work for people who are going to click them anyway. They are always going to click them. And the more they click, the more they will click.
Right.
Right. So,
and they get their computer taken away, and they get a Chromebook.
Well, that's true. Well, Chromebook is what, Linux based?
Yeah.
Maybe a iPad or something.
There's different levels.
You're not going to get a keyboard
eventually
anymore.
They get pen and paper.
Yep.
Right. And then it just goes downhill from there. But an acquaintance of mine and ours really once suggested that why not approach this as you have your list of people who have clicked on them in the past and probably will in the future, or most likely will, that they're on the list when the company has to go through another round of layoffs, right? Why not get rid of your biggest risks when you're just somehow randomly choosing, nearly randomly, employees to let go. That would be a kind of way to trim the fat, is to get rid of your riskiest employees too.
True. But okay, so in the same vein, if you know these people are a higher risk, could you not, limit their access to things or add additional controls to, log activity, or, maybe put extra scrutiny on their email boxes, for instance? Maybe more of their email gets blocked or has to be released from whatever email system that you have.
Yeah, all HTML is blocked in their inbox.
Yeah. Make it so
they can't actually click on a link.
Like they can't get incoming HTML, or all the HTML gets, converted to text before it gets sent to them. Or, instead of, obviously they're high risk, but if we take some of that risk away from them and offload that onto the technology that we have in our enterprise, it seems to me that would make more sense than, just expecting them to go. 'Cause like it or hate it, some of those most, risky people are probably your most talented folks as well. Because, they're not thinking about security. They're thinking about getting the next release of software out, or, they're your boss's boss's boss, and your boss's boss doesn't want to, have to deal with your boss's boss's boss. That would be the way I would come at it. Obviously that's not the way every company would come at it, but I would think that there's enough technology out there that in the enterprise that you could use to, add them and add additional scrutiny to those people, or help to reduce that risk further.
Put them in a special group.
Yeah, maybe.
Right.
If, maybe take some of their permissions away via GPO, for instance, if, make it so that they can't necessarily do something, across the network like everyone else can, or, maybe implementing two-factor across the network for everybody would reduce the risk for everybody, not just those handful of folks.
Mm-hmm.
So... Well, which is what the report says. Use two-factor auth. Phishing campaigns are hugely effective, so two-factor auth can limit damage if credentials are lost or stolen. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I think if you want to skim through the document and try to get something out of it, there are little sections in red called things to consider.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little thing that you can read that may have some insight into, okay, maybe I should try this thing. Right. So those are some good points in the document, the things to consider.
Right.
There's a lot of numbers in here that were like, these things don't add up. Like I think there are 2,216 breaches. Right. But wait a minute, they don't count ransomware as a breach.
Nope.
Okay. Otherwise that number would go way up. They don't count something called botnet breaches. So botnets were taken out of the equation, they say, because this would just skew all the data. There's 43,000 quote botnet breaches.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then of course they have their totals for external actors and internal actors. So they had 1,097 external breaches, mm-hmm. and 227 internal breaches. But those don't add up to the 2,200 breaches, right? So where's the other 1,000? Are they not internal and not external? I just don't know. Maybe that data wasn't filled out properly, because I investigated being part of the VERIS framework 2 years ago.
Yeah. And
there is a ton of data that you have to fill in for every not only breach, but incident as well, and events, right? And there's like 100 things you have to fill out. It is very difficult to implement the VERIS framework in an organization, and to do it properly, I'm sure there's a lot of things that don't get filled out just because it takes so much time, or you're confused. What do I fill out in this situation? There's so much data. All this stuff may not apply to a certain event or incident.
Yep.
Right. So you have to take that into consideration, that these numbers don't add up.
Yeah.
They do not consider, ransomware breach, maybe a breach of confidentiality. I'm not sure. So, there's that. And another thing I think on the file types that they mention, Office docs and PDFs combined only represent 20% of the file types they get in phishing emails. I would think that's a lot more, but a majority of them were JavaScript and executables. And if you took our advice a year ago, you would be blocking those already. So you'd get rid of 80% of the potential infections right there off the top just by blocking those in your gateway.
Yeah, but it would make make the Verizon data breach investigation report that much more boring, wouldn't it?
Well, they could drill down further, right? So
true.
A lot of the things you need to do is get rid of the heavy hitters. So if you're getting 60% of your attachments that are malicious JS files,
right?
Well, then stop allowing JS files.
Right.
Right. When are JS files in an attachment a legitimate thing? I don't know. Maybe when somebody interviews to be a programmer and you want them to create some JavaScript and they send it to the recruiter. I'm not sure that would even fly.
Well, you just rename the file to JS1 or 001, and that gets around most email filters. I get told a lot, hey, we block zip files. Okay, I'll just name it to 001, and then you rename it back when you're done. They're like, hey, great, that works. I'm like, oh, great.
Yeah, good ones are supposed to actually check for file type.
I love it. No, it never fails. Every time somebody tells me, oh, yeah, we block zip files, I'm like, They look at .zip. They don't actually look at the file header and go, that's a zip file. It may be 001 or 005. It's still a zip file. So, if your company's email filter, whatever's not looking at the file headers and is looking just at extensions, you probably need to get a better piece of technology. So,
right. And then deny the double click, even if it doesn't come via email, it comes some other means, or it's encrypted or whatever. You can change those file associations, and that'll destroy 80% of your infections right there. Just don't allow people to double click JS files. Oh, the developers, they won't be able to double click. Oh, developers are smart enough to figure that out.
Yeah.
Okay. They don't need to double click things.
Right.
Okay. They open it up in Eclipse or Visual Studio, whatever they're using, and they go from there.
Yep.
So the excuses that people are going to get confused, I mean, they really are, is just empty. Empty words.
Yeah.
We've found.
Yeah. Ms. Berlin, is this the living off the land comment? Was that yours? In the show notes?
But that was from the Symantec one.
Okay. So, I mean, we could probably talk about that anyway. Not Symantec thing, but the living off the land. What does that necessarily mean for an attacker when they're living off the land?
Hold on, I forget what it said. I've completely lost.
I think I know the answer, but I was just wondering. You don't have to look it up in the Symantec report if you don't want to.
No, I was going to read the quote of what I typed out there.
Right. Okay. Yeah, we'll do the Symantec report another day. So.
Oh, you want me to skip it then?
No. You can talk about the quote, but I mean, it was in the show notes, so
Yeah. So the quote I put on there is the living off the land trend continues with attack groups opting for tried and trusted means to infiltrate target organizations. Spear phishing is the number one infection vector employed by 71% of organized groups in 2017. The use of 0 days continues to fall out of favor.
Right.
So I just put that on there just because every year these reports are kind of the same. It already says that, spear phishing 71% still, even in this year.
Right.
And the tried and trusted means they use, they're all the majority are opportunistic. Not a whole lot of people are using 0 days, but a lot of a lot of the big conferences we see are very O-Day based, right? I mean, that's what draws the big crowds and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But we are starting to see, I think, a bigger shift to blue team conferences that are covering more of the, okay, now all of this tried and true stuff that's been happening for the last 10, 11 years, maybe we should start focusing on that a little bit more.
Yeah. No, I thought the whole idea of the quote living off the land, I didn't realize it was in the semantic report. Sorry about that. Yeah. It's the, when the attacker gains access to the host or whatever, they're going to use the tools that are available inside the host itself. So making archives, you're not going to, if they have an interpreter shell or something in there, they're not going to push up a copy of WinZip or zip or binaries or something and use those because it's noisy. They'd use, if it was a Windows box, they'd use like makecab or something like that, which is an archive that that is inherent in Windows. So, for people who are logging things, that wouldn't necessarily, light off a red flag. It just looks like somebody's using the makecab command, which I guess if nobody's ever used the makecab command, that could be a way of doing it. Or if it's a Linux box, most of those boxes already come with ncat on them or something, so they would use that ncat version instead of uploading their own, which would have, which would also be fairly noisy. It'd be more traffic across the wire. So that's what I thought living off the land was. Okay. So anyway, I've got something I wanted to talk about, like a little short subject before we go. Is anybody have any other thoughts about the DBIR?
Nope.
Well, if you can't take things just on their face, you have to put them into context.
Right.
Like the breaches per pattern, they have them divided into patterns: web application, point of sale, privilege misuse, cyber espionage. The biggest is web applications.
Well, yeah.
But if you drill down, it's like botnets attacking web applications. And then crimeware is everything involving malware that didn't fit in any other category, right? But malware is spread throughout every one of the patterns, right? So you have to kind of you can't just take something and say, well, web applications is the biggest thing.
Right.
You have to read all of the categories and figure out how are they categorizing these. I'm not sure why they're categorizing. Like the second most common is miscellaneous. Okay.
So that's everything that didn't fit in the crimeware catch-all and anything that didn't fit in the malware catch-all that wasn't necessarily crimeware and miscellaneous.
Miscellaneous incidents in which unintentional actions directly compromise an attribute of a security asset. So I'm not sure whether that was they left their laptop in a car, and that was unintentional.
Right. I'm just going into Starbucks for 5 minutes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or they got phished.
Right.
Right. That could be phishing. Miscellaneous errors.
Right.
Misdelivery of information. Ooh, I'm sorry, I accidentally put my password in that phishing site. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Things like that. So it's important to read the details if you're going to read the report or not take things out of context. Like I hear a lot that internal actors account for 80% of all breaches. Buy our tool to get a handle on your employees, what they're doing, where they're going, and what they're accessing.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. I don't know where they get those numbers. According to here, 73% perpetrated by outsiders, 28% involved internal actors. What does that mean that they're involved?
Right.
Right. Does that mean that they got phished from an outsider? I don't know.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure the outsider wrote the malware.
Yeah. Or the 73% of outsiders, 28% of those 73% included people who were inside the organization. So you have your insider threat doing 28%, but they still needed help from an outsider to make it happen. I don't know, maybe. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah, we've beaten that dead horse. We didn't do last year's. I think we did 2016's, but yeah, we don't normally do these things because, it's kind of same different year, that kind of thing. So, I mean, it's like most attacked assets, databases, or, whatever. It was like, yeah, a lot of that stuff is kind of duh. It's
got data?
Yeah.
No.
Because it's got the keys to your kingdom.
2% involve partners. We've always heard you need to, what does that mean? And maybe like I said, the VERIS framework is complicated to implement. Maybe some of these got left out.
Right. Right. Or it wasn't fully filled out. Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Anyway, so that was...
And at the end, they do talk about the differences between, like, what constitutes an incident, what constitutes a breach, things like that. So just to get some context. Yep.
All right. Well, I mean, that's all I think we need to talk about the 2018 DBIR. There are probably a ton of other podcasts that are going to talk about it as well. I know Defensive Security did a little bit on it too, which I found their analysis very, very useful. They always do a good job, Jerry and Andy.
Did they like the jokes?
I don't think they talked about the jokes. Maybe we're not supposed to talk about the jokes. I don't know. Anyway.
I mean, a lot of them aren't jokes, so there's that.
It's very contextual in some cases, yes. I would, if there's anybody who wrote or worked on the DBIR and would like to come on, and we'll put a voice changer on or something, I'd love to have you come on and talk about the actual building of the report, not necessarily the jokes.
I promise I won't make fun of you a lot.
A lot. Well, you're not helping. You're not helping. You're not.
That's why people come on. That's why people come on, right?
People aren't going to come on if we're going to get made fun of. So. No.
I don't know.
We're going to have Gail from HR talk to you about your comments.
I've been told I'm an HR nightmare. I don't know why.
You should put that on your business cards.
Put that on my resume.
There you go.
I don't see it.
No, me neither.
Right?
No, you're a delight.
The same people that say that I'm no shit. No, I can't remember the word. Intimidating.
No, you're not intimidating.
See?
And on the next topic for blending down security, we just that's funny. Yeah. Anyway, so before we go, I have something I want to talk about, and it kind of goes back to what I was talking about, me starting a new job. And when I gave my notice with my employer, I started beforehand. I'd had a day or two before I had decided to make the leap and give my notice, but I was starting to prepare the offboarding that I don't see a lot at other companies. So when I gave my notice, I told my boss, I was like, look, I've got all this access to these various companies, third parties, I want to make sure that I'm out of your system because I've been there for 3+ years. So I have access to a lot of stuff. It's not just like you've been there a year and you're a developer and you have access to code and that's about it. I have access to, the production environment, our corporate environment, test environment, everything. I've got access to third parties that we utilize and their logins and stuff. And I got to thinking about the offboarding process and, the onboarding process when people have it, it's very rigid. It's very regimented. You have a policy. You're supposed to follow this. You're supposed to read this. You're supposed to read that. I have worked at other companies, and it's not this one. I haven't fully offboarded yet with this one, so I can't speak from experience, but the offboarding process for a lot of companies seems very ad hoc. I don't know. Am I wrong on that? But I mean, I've worked at other companies where it was like all the way from, we're going to escort you out because we think you're a security risk to just mail your laptop back and we'll take care of the rest. And I was like, I find there's a disparagement there that we don't have rigid policies at a lot of companies offboarding people, which is why compliance frameworks often take up that slack where they require you to do that. And it seems to me that we shouldn't have a we shouldn't have to have compliance telling us that, you need to get rid of the guy who has the keys to your kingdom less than 12 hours afterwards, or you need to kill his VPN access immediately as soon as he leaves the door. Because he may have loaded his VPN software on some kind of private box or something.
I've had both. I've had extremely secure offboarding, all the way down to I still had access to stuff years later.
Oh my God!
How did you know that?
Not necessarily access into the environment. No, that one was more licensing. So all their Microsoft licensing was tied to my live account. So I had that for a while, and there was a couple other shared login type things that I still had access to. Like we had a Safari book online when that had first come out that everybody shared a login to. So I had that. Yeah. And handful of other stuff. And then another company I worked for, as soon as they heard and got me to actually say that I was I didn't tell them, they just heard I was leaving. It was then I was not able to give notice. They still gave me my 2 weeks pay, and they were great about it, but that was their thing, and everybody knew that when you signed up, is that you aren't able to give notice. They just cut you off right there, and they had great policies around it. I think they had a lot of automation around it, because you only had the one off account.
Bit in the past,
I'm not sure, but their stance on it was they're a security company, and it's their responsibility to make sure that you don't have access still to customer data and everything, which I totally get. It still doesn't matter though if somebody is going to leave and end up keeping it a better secret than I did. Right. And they could do whatever they want maliciously. Yeah. So it doesn't really cover that.
Yeah, I mean, if you were going to do something malicious, it wouldn't be in the last 2 weeks that you were working there. You'd been doing it over the long term. But I've had that happen and heard that happen where it's they gave notice and they're like, "Yeah, you're not gonna be here for anymore. That's it. You're done." And it's not personal. It's not personal. It's just they're worried about the insider threat thing. So yeah.
Yeah. The only thing that it kills me on, especially if you have direct customer relationships. Mm-hmm. Is that those relationships are severed, and anything that you are currently working on, if it's not well documented somewhere shared, that's going to impact the customer
and ultimately impact the business.
Right. Yeah. So that kind of stuff, if you can't offboard that, I think could cause problems and relationship problems between the customer and the company.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, I think from the company side, there needs to be a well-defined method by which you're offboarding people, kind of from the outside in. So if it's VPN access to get to everything, kill the VPN access, and that kills pretty much 80% of the access, or, invalidate their two-factor or what have you. But I think from the side of a person, and I know that Infosec were why are you talking about this? But from the point of view of a person and the culture, the people who are leaving should care enough to want to be out of the system. I don't want access to this company once I leave it. And there should be no idea that I would want access to that or to be construed as, wanting access. So I told him, I was like, the last day of work, I will drive to our office, which is an hour and a half away, or on a good day. And I will physically hand in my MacBook and my two-factor device. And if they want to give me back my two-factor device, I'll have the IT guy factory reset it. So he's physically reset it. I don't want them taking anything of what I say at face value. I don't keep personal stuff on my work laptop. I don't keep work stuff on my personal laptop, which makes it so much easier. But, I was also like, here's a list. And I took a screenshot of every 150 logins that I have in my password locker. And I was like, here's what you guys need to look at and make sure that, I am out of those things. And, which included, third-party websites, external scanning, vulnerability scanning tools, for instance, or what have you. And I'm already, I've been so busy this week with meetings just to turn things over. It's been amazing. But yeah, to, make sure that they're able to do my job when I leave, because, it's a great company. I just, want to make sure that I leave them in as, they're going to be hamstrung for a while, I think, until they find a replacement for me. I just want to make sure that everything is good to go. And, that's the important thing. It's different than being terminated where, I think that's where processes fail, is when people are forcibly terminated or they quit. Then it's like all hands on deck. But with something where you're easing out, you should be having a back and forth or a proper communication to be able to, sign out in a manner that is not as stressful. They shouldn't have to run incident response on a guy who's given 2 weeks notice. It should just be, you're done on Friday. You're no longer in the system, and all the tickets have been created. We're all compliant with the things and the stuffs, and that way they don't fall afoul of any compliance requirements. So, all right, that was my little diatribe, my little thing. I don't know how everyone else feels about it, but yeah, take a look at your termination processes. Take a look at your offboarding processes, because they should be different. There should be 2 different versions for offboarding versus termination. And update those if you haven't. So that's all I got. Mr. Boettcher, Miss Berlin, you have any last comments or thoughts?
So on that note, Amanda?
I didn't know Barbara Bush died.
Oh, yeah, that was like 2 days ago. She was in hospice care, I guess. Somebody had leaked it on Monday evening.
I have something on the web app comments that they were the number 1 category of breaches. So if you drill down, stolen creds is the top thing in that category. So they count stolen creds as a web app breach.
Wow.
In most of those web apps breaches. So there you go.
Interesting. Because usually passwords are leaked; they're not breached. When every time I hear, "Oh, there's a password," there's a bunch of passwords on Pastebin or something. It's like, "Oh, these passwords were leaked," or "These accounts were leaked; they weren't breached." So,
is it they found a vulnerability in a web app and were able to harvest all those passwords and credentials, or did they use a stolen credential to access the web app nefariously? Right? I don't know. And it doesn't say.
Again, if somebody's on the DBIR team wants to come on the show, and we'll be in the safe tree. So Miss Berlin will have to be in the safe tree with us. No judging. And, you can come on. We can talk about the methodologies used to make these things.
I'll just have to turn off my web camera.
Is that what it...
You're rolling my eyes the whole time.
Oh, man.
Because you're intimidating?
I don't want to intimidate the guests.
That's right. We don't want to intimidate people. So, all right. So, Ms. Berlin, if people wanted to discuss anything, I don't know, if they want to talk about your eye-rolling techniques or whatever, how would they go about
I am a pro. Let me tell you.
Okay. All right. Well, you can give the next BreakSec training course on eye rolling.
Eye rolling? All right.
Yeah. I can see him from the back row.
So either on our Slack or on Twitter at InfoSister, INFOSYSTIR. And I keep on forgetting to mention this. I created a defensive security and purple teaming group on Facebook too, if people are on Facebook.
Oh, that's new. I might have to join that. Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Mr. Boettcher, so we talked a lot about the malware and what things people should be logging. I know you have a program called LogMD that, helps people with logging of systems. How would people who need help with logging systems or protecting their systems against malware, how would they get a hold of you if they wanted to talk to you about that?
Yeah, I use a program that I wrote called LogMD, and you can too. It's free. All you have to do is download it on my website. It's log-md.com. You got to put the dash in there, otherwise you'll get some proctologist in Wisconsin. But yes, log-md.com.
Unless you want a proctologist in Wisconsin.
A Wisconsin proctologist, yeah.
Dr. Log, is that what it was? The proctologist?
Makes sense.
That's not right. That's so not right. Okay. Man. Anyway. All right. So the break.
We tried to buy his domain, but he told us to shove it up our ass. So.
Try the veal. Mr. Boettcher will be here all week. So.
Way better jokes than the DBIR.
Shots fired. So salty. That is savage.
Again, please come on.
Yeah, well,
we'd enjoy having you.
Yes, we would. So
for some insight,
exactly. Yeah. So the BreakSec podcast's official Twitter is @BreakSec, BRAKESEC, and you can follow me on Twitter. I tend to retweet a lot of things, but I actually put out some insight today about vulnerability management. If vulnerability management program is only based on what you're scanning, you're probably sticking a finger in a dam. So, that was an insight that I put out just recently. So, I mean, not much of an insight, but still, it was original content by me. But you can follow me at Brian Brake, BRYANBRAKE. And we have a Patreon. So thank you to all the people who are supporting us on Patreon. We just had a couple of new users support us on that, which was great. It goes to hosting the podcast on Libsyn. Also goes to upgrading our equipment if something happens. So yeah, like Mr. Ed here, who, gave us a couple of bucks. That's all we need. A couple bucks is all we need. $1, $2. Don't go too crazy on that. So if you find value in what we do here, we believe in the value for value model. So if you want to leave us a couple bucks in tip jar, it's great. So we're on Apple. They call it Apple Podcasts or something now instead of iTunes, but I mean, you can find us on iTunes as well. We're in the Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio app, iHeartRadio. We're on Spotify. I forgot about that. I forget we were on Spotify. That's kind of a big deal. So yeah, if you are interested in listening to the show, please let us tell your friends and let us know that you enjoy the show. We're also on Slack. You can DM BreakSec on Twitter, or you can just email us at bds.podcast@gmail.com to get on that. So we're very active on there. David, Mr. Cybuck, who just did the resume review at Bsides Nashville, which went over gangbusters apparently, it runs our book club. So we also have some training with Professor Miller, Matt Miller, who we've had on the show, University of Nebraska at Kearney. He teaches our ASM, our assembly and reverse engineering course. So we're doing about week 4 of that. And those videos will be out in a couple of weeks. So if you're interested in seeing those, not a couple of weeks, actually probably end of June, we'll try to put them out for free. So if you're interested in doing that. So that was it for this week on Breaking Down Security. Next week, if everything holds, we'll be talking about... Should I jinx it? Boettcher?
No, don't jinx it.
Okay, well, we have hopefully something really, really good coming up, and it'll be a really great interview, and we're looking forward to it, hopefully. Probably jinxed it already, so...
Last time you said, we're going to have this awesome podcast, I had to go somewhere. Our guest didn't show up, and it was just you talking.
But that was a good show then, yeah? He hesitated.
What were your exact words? Like,
wow.
I can't remember what you said about it, but it was pretty hilarious. And in fact, you should have recorded that and just put that 5-second blip out. And that would have been really
like just a 5-second podcast.
Oh man, that's hurtful. God, dog. Anyway,
like the 1-second Super Bowl commercial.
Yeah, that's right. No, that was like what, $5,000 for the 1-second Super Bowl commercial.
Yeah, so they divided 1 million by 60 or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Right on. All right, well, that was it. We're done for the week on Breaking Down Security. Have a good week, and be nice to one another, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.